This Week in Radio Tech. Episode 216 is brought to you by Axia and the powerful, flexible LiveWire AOIP networking technology. Consoles, mix engines, intercoms, phones, audio processors, only Axia connects so much, so easily. And by Lavo, maker of the new crystal clear virtual radio console. It's the radio console with a multi-touch touchscreen interface. The Cumulus NASH studios are home to American Country Countdown, America's Morning Show, and Nash Nights. Plus, these state-of-the-art studios are built for multimedia production, including video streaming and live concerts. Cumulus Nashville IT Director and Engineer Zach Harper gives a tour to the Nashville SBE chapter, and we brought our video camera along. Hey, welcome in. It's time for This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. Glad that you're here. This is the show where we talk about broadcast technology, radio technology, studios, transmitters, towers, all that kind of stuff. And have we got a treat today? I mean, I was so excited when I found out we could actually put this show together, that we could go on location and record the bulk of the show and get an incredible tour. And then icing on the cake, the guy that gave us the tour is actually our guest on the show today. So when we come up with questions about what we see in the video tour, we can right to the horse's mouth. We get those answers from Zach Harper. Our show is brought to you by the folks at Lavo, makers of the crystal clear audio console. It's a virtual audio console, which means you run it with a touchscreen. Pretty cool. And our show is also brought to you by Axia Audio and the LiveWire AOIP standard. We'll also talk about how AES 67 works into that as well. But Axia has studios all over the world with equipment that all from Telos and Omni and other manufacturers that all talk to it. So check it out. Stay tuned. We'll tell you about both products as we move through the show today. Now, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Glad to have him on the show. First time here. It's Zach Harper from Cumulus in Nashville. Hi, Zach. Welcome in.
Thanks. How you guys doing?
We're good. Good. Glad you could make it. Zach, as your job as a IT director and a studio engineer well, actually take care of transmitters too. Tell us what you do at Cumulus here in Nashville.
So I'm the IT director for all of the properties in Middle Tennessee that incorporates our radio property at 10 Music Circle East and our syndication property over at 2nd Avenue, which is where we took the tour.
Cool. Now, as IT director, well, radio stations, you walk through any room and there's just more and more and more computers and networks everywhere. Give us a couple thoughts about, the role of an IT director in broadcasting today.
So here's the thing. It used to be an IT guy just maintained sales machines and, maybe a web surfer in the studio. But doing what I do, it encompasses everything from our automation systems up to the STL. So I've got IP equipment in our studios. I've got IP over audio equipment. I've got all kinds of things that intersect in this weird area that used to be you were either just an engineer, like you handled the transmitters and consoles and stuff, or you just handled the PCs. Now the consoles have become so advanced, automation systems have become so advanced, and the delivery methods for programming have become so advanced. It all intersects, and it's a pretty neat spot to operate in right now. It's a lot of things are on the horizon. A lot of interesting things are happening in the space. So it keeps me on my toes, but it's a good place to be.
Years ago, and I know I've mentioned this before on the show, but years ago, somebody said, Kirk, in 20 years, we're not going to have TV cameras anymore. We're going to have computers that take TV pictures. And we're not going to have audio consoles anymore. We actually said this 20 years. We're going to have computers that mix audio. And, you could say we're not even going to have telephone hybrids anymore. We're going to have computers that manage and process telephone calls. And oh my goodness, that has come true. So almost every piece of gear we have in a broadcast facility nowadays, if it's new, has an Ethernet jack on it. And in many cases, that Ethernet jack does some really important stuff, don't you think?
Absolutely. And that's a lot of it is driven by innovation from manufacturers like Telos and Axia. But a lot of it is driven by the market as well. Stations need a way to drive traffic to their website, and they need an added value mechanism. And getting content to the web through these devices easily speeds up that process, and that means the stations are saving money, and we're creating more content for users to come to our site to consume, so it drives web traffic. It's all encompassing and pretty interesting stuff.
Well, we're going to talk about that actually after we see the video tour. You wanted to talk to us about the intersection of broadcast studios and multimedia, and I guess that's a very clear example of this at the studios that we're going to tour here in just a minute. I promise. Right? I know I'm building up to it, but I promise we're going to see that. Our co-host, who's often on the show, Chris Tobin, when he worked for CBS Radio, would often remind us that the CBS radio stations in New York daily produce many hours more video than the CBS television stations in New York. Now you could say that, well, one was highly produced and the other one was cameras pointed at a radio show, but still it was compelling entertainment information on the radio side as well. So we're seeing a lot more of this. European broadcasters have been doing this for a while too. And even my little radio stations off in American Samoa, we've got like 5 little lipstick cameras placed around the studio, and we actually pay a guy to sit there and switch between cameras during the morning show, and it goes on a cable channel. So we're just, I guess you'd probably agree or could add to the fact that we as content creators want people to partake of our content no matter where they are: radio, TV, in the shower, in the car, TV set in the bedroom, getting ready for work.
That's exactly right. And it's all about driving traffic to your site, because I guarantee you, if you're not doing it, the guy down the street is going to be doing it. And if you don't get on the bandwagon soon, his ratings are going to go up and yours are not. And the thing about a lot of these tools to get content to the web, to get video up, and to get that social media, outreach, it's accessible to the mom and pops and also the large radio corporations. You don't have to have a lot of money to do this anymore. So we've got a local independent station in town that is on their game in terms of social media. Now, I happen to think we do it better, but it's just the talent pool that we have to draw from. So, you're going to see a lot more competition on the digital front from a lot more mom and pops that wouldn't be able to get into the space earlier, but now they can.
Well, I want to hear about that. I want to hear how small stations. We took the plunge in American Samoa. We had a cable channel, and we have a morning guy who's kind of there anyway doing some producing, so we had him push the buttons. But I want to hear how we can get this onto our websites and so forth. We'll cover that after the video. The video needs very little introduction. I want to say that we scheduled our Nashville SBE, Society of Broadcast Engineers. We scheduled our chapter to have a meeting at the new facility that Cumulus has for syndicated country music programming. There's also a magazine offices in the same building. We did actually tour this building some months ago on the TWiRT show, and Gary Klein, the director of IT and the senior VP of IT and engineering, he showed us through all these studios and said, this is going to be this, and this is going to be that, and this is going to be that. We showed that video here. It's on a previous TWiRT show. And so now we had an SBE meeting there. We had lunch, and then, Zach, you walked us through the whole place. Any further setup for the video before we roll it?
No further setup. Just like to thank the engineers that helped build this. If you think one guy built this facility, you are out of your mind. Kirk, you helped us immensely. It's much appreciated. But Gary, Yancey, Dave, Robert, Bobby, JT in Charleston, Keith Bosworth, we have an incredible team of Cumulus engineers that travel to all these sites and get these places up and running. And I was astonished that it went up as fast as it did and the work was done as well as it was. But everything in this facility is top notch. I'm very proud of it.
That's a good point. We had one of your colleagues, Robert Combs, was on the show a few weeks ago and talked a bit about building these facilities. All right. Our producer in New York City, Andrew Zarian, let's roll the video and pay close attention. This is really good stuff. We're going to break about halfway through it and chat a bit.
Hi, I'm Zach Harper, engineer here at Nash, here with the SBE meeting behind me, as you can see. There he is, finally, Mr. Troy. There is, and we're going to take the SBE on a small tour of the facility. Hope you like it.
Where are we going, Zach?
We're going to our morning show facility, America's Morning Show. This is the second studio I put in the building after Kix, who we will take tour of later. This is the nicest facility in the building, as far as I'm concerned. Full suite of Axia.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. This was our first attempt at putting in some of the larger consoles. We went with 2 consoles. Full-on Axia suite in here. Automation systems throughout the building are going to be OpEx based. Basically because it's a Cumulus product, for those that don't know. We purchased BSI. We've got nodes in this rack, Cisco routers. We've got a core router back in our tech center. Mic processing over that way. This is the spot where the morning show producer does all of his work, and he runs around like a crazy person, does a great job every day. It's amazing he does everything that he does. TELUS VX phone systems. We've got an ORAD video system in the facility, which is pretty neat. We've got a server in our tech center that monitors feeds from all of our HD cameras we've got placed around. We'll go take a look.
Zach, this is a radio show, right?
This is a radio show.
Hard to believe.
I know.
But you do it video also? Or?
We do.
Is that streaming yet on the web?
We are not streaming yet. We have not had a rollout yet for streaming.
Microphones you're looking for?
Absolutely. This is the second studio we built in the facility. The first one we brought over was Kix's. I had a studio for him at 54 Music Circle, or Music Square, the Roy Acuff building, as a lot of people know it. After the merger between Citadel and ABC Radio Networks, the American Country Countdown became a Citadel property. And we acquired them and their satellite distribution platform as well. After the Cumulus and Citadel merger, we moved them out of that facility and over here. All the talent have had a hand in building their own sets. You might notice this looks a lot like a TV facility. It was designed to look like that to capitalize on multimedia opportunities and a lot of directions that Cumulus is going to be going in the future. These are HD cameras, so they're going to look great on the air. They're not normal webcams. They're pan-tilt zoom. They're controlled from in there. They run through an ORAD system with a server I've got in my tech center. That server will automatically change depending on who's on mic. So it's picking me up now, probably. But if we were to have those mics on and our co-host, Terry or Chuck, were to start speaking, it would automatically switch to them. Blair Garner, who is the main host of the show, it would switch back to him. We're recording all these. We're not streaming yet. We've got a rollout planned sometime this year, but we want to have all facilities online before we do that. And
Camera switch is automated?
Automated by a system called ORAD. They developed it.
So is it tying to the microphone?
Directly to mic processing.
So it's looking at which is the lead microphone? It's looking at like audio. It's looking at gating.
It is. It's just sensing audio. It's got about a 5 or 6 second switch over, so you don't have this.
Right.
You know, somebody talks, bang, 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 bang. This is used for our syndicated morning show with Blair Garner, Chuck and Terry sit over there.
Syndicates out over satellite?
Syndicates over the legacy ABC satellite network, which is now Cumulus owned and is their preferred distribution platform.
Satellite uplink is here?
Satellite uplink is not here. We feed T1 and a unit called Oslo. It's an IP-based unit. We feed everything to our TOC in New York, where Cumulus's main uplink facility resides. And that's it. We had Claire Brothers come in and do all the rigging, all the truss, all the lighting, and all of the audio in here. This set splits in the middle, and although it's heavy, it's on wheels, and it moves. It can be split in the middle, rolled against the walls, and I've got floor boxes where I can connect acoustic guitars for acts that come in. I've got wireless mics that I can deploy. I've got a mixing kit, Allen and Heath, that I can roll out and deploy pretty quickly. So this becomes a performance space. Clair Brothers also installed some of their speakers, and we've got a sub or two up here in the rigging. So it sounds better than any home theater I've ever been in when you crank it. So it's pretty amazing that they went all out and did it, but they did. When this started, it was a New York-based format. So we debuted it on one station, our Cumulus station in New York. So
That's the reason for the time?
no, reason for the time is because of syndication, and we broadcast to the East Coast. So we run East Coast time so that when New York wakes up, we go live at New York's preferred time for a start of broadcast.
5 a.m.
Yeah. And our XDS satellite system will store and replay hours later for all the following time zones so that time calls are correct. It's 6:10, you know, welcome to the morning show. So we don't have that going out at the wrong time in Central and Mountain. So when Clair Brothers came in, worked pretty closely with them, and they installed sound baffling panels all behind the wood slats back here to further diffuse any noise. Being set up as a performance space, we wanted the space to not really act like an echo chamber. And when we brought in the brick facade, it was really starting to look that way. But after the baffling, it's done pretty good. It's a really live sounding space with just enough reverb to sound nice, so it's not completely dead like a studio. But, you know, it's got a nice...
Natural sound.
Yeah. It's like 1 inch, half-inch veneer. And these guys, they came in, they didn't even use a level. It was amazing. They just pop, 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 pop. They had it done in half a day. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So, that's it. We've got lighting control. A lot of the lighting is LED, except for the stuff that we couldn't get away with. Incandescents in the Lecos and the Fresnels, the high-powered lights you see up here, because the LEDs haven't gotten to a spot yet where they can get that output. So we've got the old school incandescents up here still. I've got LEDs in my PAR studio up front that are coming close, but it's a much smaller space, so they don't, you know, have to deal with what they have to deal with here.
Are there, when you run a radio show that's on a TV set, what considerations are there between the control room and this room that you might not find in a typical radio station?
Well, we have a makeup facility and a makeup room that the folks need because the lighting is so bright. When we get these things going, these aren't even all on right now, but when we do get them going and they're blasting in the talent space, it will absolutely wash them out. So we have a makeup facility around the back corner here, which we can go look at. And additionally, we've got a green room for artists in the corner back here, which we can go take a look at as well. When Cumulus built a facility as a Nash facility and started promoting the Nash brand, they wanted to bring in all kinds of media. So print media, video, audio, the works. So I've got Country Weekly magazine in the center of my building. Brought them in, geez, maybe 6 months ago. They're really new. But when they have artists come in to do interviews or to write stories on them, if they come in to perform, they use this space. Because my morning show is typically out of here by around noon. So they'll cut promos and spots and such after they go off the air.
Well, we're going to continue with the rest of that video that's got about 15 more minutes to go. You're going to see after this one, the next studios you're going to see are the Nash Nights studio, which has incredible furniture. That's coming up. And you're going to get to see the Kix Brooks studio. Who's Kix Brooks? For those of you who don't know, well, remember Brooks and Dunn, the musical country music group, Brooks and Dunn? That's Kix Brooks. And he's also the host of American Country Countdown, as well as Kicking It with Kix. Hey, Zach, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, good. Hey, we're going to take just a minute here to chat about one of our sponsors. It's a good time to talk about Axia and Livewire. I don't want to talk so much about the products, but I want to talk about the technology of Livewire. And I'll tell a little bit of a story here. You know, back, gee, it was 14 years ago now, almost 15 years ago, that Steve Church and some other of the scientist level guys like Greg Shea and some guys that we had just met in Latvia started talking about how to eliminate the massive wiring that we have, how to actually do a better job than AES digital audio does, how to make audio work a lot like a computer network does, where we could actually route things and not have latency and not have collisions of the packets and all these kind of things. And about that same time, IT, LAN technology was getting better. And it allowed us to, we started having, instead of hubs, remember, networking hubs, we could have switches now that would actually not ever drop a packet as long as we didn't overload an input port or ask too much to go out of an output port. And so we had better networking technologies starting to be available to us in the early 2000s. We looked at a couple of, Telos at the time, we looked at other existing technologies, one of which was CobraNet. And that was very interesting to us because there were already chipsets available for CobraNet. But at least at the time, CobraNet didn't allow routing, and it didn't allow any other kinds of data to be on the network other than the CobraNet audio data. And it was really weird. It was kind of one way. You could insert stuff and take it back out, but you couldn't send audio back the other way. It was just kind of weird, and it worked great for the applications it was designed for, but it wasn't designed for a broadcast studio. Oh, and the latency was really long. You talk in the mic and you hear it back through your headphones 20 milliseconds or more later, and that'll never do. That sounds really strange, almost to be a slap echo. So we began to work with existing protocols and to see how we could get the latency of audio over IP down to something acceptable. And the short story is we found out a couple of things. You make the packets really small. So packets, what are we doing? We're taking audio and we're digitizing it and by sampling it. It's digital audio now, and it's a 48 kilohertz sample, stereo, 24-bit bit depth. So it's state of the art, good, excellent quality audio. Matches about the limits of technology on the AES inputs and a little bit better than the limits of technology on an analog input or output. So we found out that if we made very small packets, it's rather inefficient, but hey, we don't need efficiency at this point. We're dealing with a local area network. We make really small packets, and they take less time to transit through input and outputs on network interfaces, like on switches or on network interface cards. So we decided to make LiveWire real-time protocol, UDP, user datagram protocol, because we don't need acknowledgments. We're on the same LAN. We have switches that are deterministic and don't drop packets as long as we don't overload them. And we use, I think I said real-time protocol, and we make the packets very small. We also implement QoS, quality of service, in order to make sure that the audio packets get to go through first. You can still do email and FTP and all kinds of things on the same network, but the audio packets and actually the clock packets go through equipment before other packets do. The result? Well, we came out with LiveWire. It's now been 11 years since the first LiveWire products were put into motion, put into place. I installed the very first installation of a console that was in Auburn, Alabama, at the University of Auburn there in Auburn, Alabama. It's still on the air. The original Snake that was made by a station in Ashtabula, Ohio, that's still running. And of course, the rest is history. There are now over 5,000 Axia consoles on the air around the world. There are something on the order of 50 or 60,000 Axia nodes converting LiveWire into AES or analog and back from AES or analog into LiveWire. There's got to be close to 500,000 or more audio streams running right now. I've got a few running right here in this office. And more than all that, so now you know something about the technology, carrying this around, carrying high quality audio from place to place. It's totally routable. And that means that if I go into a facility and I put a piece of equipment somewhere that's LiveWire enabled, I can just subscribe to the audio stream that I wish to receive. So that's what I'm doing here. For example, right behind me, there are some pieces of audio gear. There's a Telos Zip 1, and it's receiving audio over my LiveWire network. Well, I've got a source of playout in my server room, and on the input side of this Zip 1, I just go into it and tell it what channel I want to subscribe to and click enter. And that audio, bam, immediately starts showing up at the input of that Zip 1. And that means you can do whatever you can do with a computer network in terms of convenience, locality, getting what you want, where you want, connecting to something that's across the building or 3 floors up, or even somewhere else. If you have the right connectivity, you can connect to it, and it becomes that easy. That's the benefit of audio over IP. Now, there are other standards out there now. Livewire, kind of set the pace for all this. And a few years later, along came some other standards like WheatNet and Dante and Ravenna. And now we've got this standard called AES 67, which most manufacturers have signed on to, including Axia, and by implication, Telos and Omnia as well, and Linear Acoustic and 25/7, all part of the Telos Alliance. So our next generation of products will all have AES 67 capability in them, and that'll mean a future where you can connect different brands, manufacturers' equipment to your Axia Livewire system, for example, or any other manufacturer. So hey, the future is here. It's been here now for 11 years as far as we at Axia are concerned, and we're moving forward. We're just getting better and better at connectivity, convenience, intercoms. Routing just becomes so easy and convenient. GPIO, it all makes sense, and it makes sense to build your next studio with. So I want to thank our sponsor, Axia Audio, and the inventors of Livewire for sponsoring this portion of This Week in Radio Tech. All right, Zach, we're going to get back to the video now and tell us what we're going to see. A couple more studios, I think.
We've got a couple more studios coming up. I've got Nash Nights Live coming up, and one of my favorites, which is the Kicks studio space, where we do a lot of recording during the week.
All right, let's roll it, Andrew.
So I've got, with the acquisition of Westwood One, I've now got Westwood One staff in this flank. I've got affiliate sales folks. I've got ABC ePrep folks, other ePrep services running out of this building, and of course you saw Country Weekly in the center. This is our Nash Nights Live facility.
It's like the same PTZ cameras.
Yes. We're trying to use the same make of those throughout the plant. And wouldn't you know it, there's more Axia stuff in here. It's amazing.
Surprise.
Surprise.
You say that like it's a good thing.
So I've got nodes and X nodes in here, along with a little bit larger console, a little bit larger frame. OpX again. Pretty much standard studio stuff, with the addition of LED lighting in here. I was able to do LED lighting in here because it was a smaller space. I didn't have the issues.
Zach, where did you find your counter?
We had those custom made. Those were a request from Mr. Sean Parr, the host. And that's what I was talking about. We let the talent pretty much design a lot of the space. And that was his idea, and they did it. And we had Claire Brothers come in and light it with LEDs that they'll change color here in a minute, probably, if I've got them set right.
Yeah.
There you go.
The morning show, is Robin connected? How
She is. I've got an APT unit, an IP-based unit between here and CNN Studios in Atlanta. She's really on HLN, but it all comes out of the CNN plant.
So when you start streaming, will video of her, will a video connection of her also be part
We
of it?
don't know. We haven't worked that out yet. That's the kind of things that they are working on.
You've got some talent who's not in the building, is it what you're
The
saying?
news anchor.
Well, Robin Mead from HLN breaks in with topical stories and such. While she's on her TV break, when they go to commercial at HLN, CNN, she can talk down the line to us, and we can either record it or go live. With a next-gen APT boxes, they're pretty handy little guys. One rack unit, stable, solid, and it's all IP-based. So as long as you have a good connection, they'll work for you.
So you mentioned several times about your connections. What do you use here for internet connectivity?
I've got a 100 meg pipe in the building. I've got a 40 meg pipe between here and our talk in New York, and you know, miscellaneous Comcast drops. But that's really about it. So.
The phones come in here PRI and then you convert it to SIP. Is that right?
Yes, we are running an asterisk server, which I was able to get up in 2013, and distributes all the VoIP through to the TELUS VXs and to all of our office phones.
When you built the first studio for the American Morning Show, you set up the TELUS VX phone system.
Mm-hmm.
When you built this studio some months later, what did you have to do to add this show to the TELUS VX?
I literally went into the TELUS VX and, you know, filled in miscellaneous passwords and numbers, and that was it. It was that easy.
And plugged in some phones.
And plugged in some phones and set those up on an IP, set them up with a show profile, and that was it.
Testimonial.
I'm telling you. Yeah. So the same ORAD system runs in here as runs in AMS. Same type of server, just not as many video inputs. And control room's over this way.
I remember when they opened this place up, because I was KD.
This is our control room. Sean Parr, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Sean Parr.
And
He's our host.
As he walks out?
Yep.
The amazing, we bow when Zach is ever in the building.
Oh, no. No.
Zach, during the Nash Nights show, how's this room used?
You know, we've changed the way we operated. Originally, this was going to be the sole control room for video and audio, and whatever multimedia we were sending out. That's the thing about the ORAD system. It will, I've got this up and running. It will frame your video output with banner ads.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. So you can sell, it's another revenue stream for Cumulus. We can sell ad space on the side of the video system. Mm-hmm.
A rare look.
A rare look inside the American Country Countdown facilities. Free M&Ms. It's the only reason I come in here. So, all my syndication is live. This is not, because we re-air overnight and on the weekends. So these are the facilities for the American Country Countdown. I think we're up to 350 affiliates now, and kicking it with Kicks, which is our overnight product. So we track in here Mondays and Tuesdays. Kicks is on the other side of the glass. This is just, it's a closed facility, really. The only in or out from this room, I've got an Axia node that handles audio from our VX phone system. And then we've got miscellaneous ISDNs and such. But no real network connectivity in terms of audio ins and outs. It's all analog. That's the way they wanted it, and that's what they got. It all runs into a simple Mackie board. It's just solid. It just works. They record into what's called a SADI recording system. It's just.
That was still a right.
I didn't either till they put it in here, and I think it works well for them, and that's what they wanted. And you know, if they know how to use it, it's fine. Well, there's enough light in here for you. We've got light behind you if you would like to turn it up. Oh, you okay, Mr. George?
Yeah, I'm good. Got a little out of balance here.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Let you work it.
Sure.
So Zach, what are the shows produced in here?
We produce the American Country Countdown in this facility. This is by far my favorite studio in the joint. It was designed to be very conversational. So Kix will sit in one of the chairs. We deploy boom mics when we have, you know, the bands come out. The guests will sit on the couch, and that's where the interview will take place. Really easy. It's not, a lot of people are surprised believing that it's going to be later used for broadcast, because it really just seems like, you know, very easygoing kind of set. I've got floor boxes in the floor. Claire Brothers did this as well for me. I've got floor boxes all around just for different analog options in case we have artists that want to bring in guitars or play.
This is it. Camera?
This is his, he uses this as his office when he's not recording. So this is his desk, that's his computer. You know, a lot of, it is. That's his hat, that's his letter opener. A lot of these things, a lot of the decorations actually are his. So a lot of the stuff on the wall, a lot of the art. We brought it over from the other facility at 54 when we came. And I've got LEDs in here. I just recently got the room lit for video. They're doing a lot more multimedia type production out of here. So I just had Claire come in and hang the truss and put in our lighting as well.
So you say that the cameras, that you don't have an ORAD system in here. What do you do with the cameras?
We don't yet. We have a manual switcher now. We film a web broadcast out of here.
For the same country countdown?
Yeah, it's a country countdown type of product for placement on Cumulus sites. And you'll notice all of the cameras are lower. It's to get up under hat brims. And we've got little LEDs that we put in the floor to get some light up under those same hat brims. So we do. We have all kinds of cowboy hats in here. So
Country television?
it is something you never ever think of. So that's it.
If Kix were in here right now giving the tour, what would he point out that he likes about the room?
I think just the fact that it feels like a living room. It's a really easygoing space, and he can get things out of artists here that you can't get out of them in a normal radio space, because they feel like all the lights are on them. They feel like the cameras are on them. You know, that's here. It's a completely different animal. A lot of great content is created here. He'll typically stand over here and record the countdown, and then we break up the countdown and intersperse that with a couple of other parts and use that to fill in our Kicking It with Kix nightly show that goes out. That's put together every day and goes out for broadcast on XDS. ACC is a weekend product typically for a lot of stations, so it'll be Saturday, Sunday.
And the countdowns are delivered to the stations as a IP down, something as a file download, or
you can do that, but it's played on XDS. So they can play it on XDS and net catch it with whatever their automation system might be, or record it in the XDS for playback later. I heard you talking about when the tower went down.
yeah.
So, and you're right, it was wind shear. It wasn't. A lot of people think it was tornado related, but it wasn't. It was just wind shear from storm. Took it down. Luckily, it landed where it did in the parking lot. It didn't hit the building. And after that, we put the self-supporter up, and the bays.
Not here then, were you?
I was not. The bays on that tower out there are tuned in between 104.5 and 103, and I've got a backup transmitter for each in the small house at the base of it. So, here's the rack room. Keep your photos to a minimum. This is it. Come on in.
Is 12:40 a.m. still on the tower?
12:40 a.m. is still side-skirted on that tower. It is.
Side skirted.
We've got the lines.
Oh, it's a folded dipole.
Yeah. So
103 and 104.
this is the midpoint on a hop from the 10 building out to GFX and Whites Creek, 103 in Brentwood. I've got a T1 between 10 Music Circle and here, and then we're still shooting it out of this building, just like we did when KDF and GFX were still in the facility.
But only to GFX?
GFX and KDF.
I looked at the other building, looks like it has an STL dish pointing toward KDF.
It probably does. Yeah. So all of our OpEx machines are located in the tech center. All of our talent machines are here as well. We're completely audio over IP for Nash Nights, America's Morning Show, which means all the audio is handled by another NIC. We don't have sound cards in these. So it's all completely over the network, Axia drivers and the like. And a lot of the gear we were able to get has got LiveWire built into it, so it made connections pretty easy.
Like the profanity delay?
Like the profanity delay. Very important profanity delay. We've got our core switches here. We run Cisco's. So we've got Studio Hub in the facility for a lot of our AES and analog connections. And I've got a wall of Studio Hub back there. I've also got a wall of Studio Hub and the transmitter, backup transmitter site out there, and that's all running through that conduit out into that building. We ended up pulling miles and miles of cable out of the ceiling.
So, yeah.
Just unused stuff. There was an old token ring network up there. I mean,
Just pull out those 27 pairs and pull back in some IP cables.
yeah, that's the, yeah. I mean, we didn't need all that copper anymore.
Yeah, right.
So we pulled a lot of it out. And after my mic processors, it's all IP based. So I didn't need all the wiring. We still ran copper wire to and from the studios, but we did new runs with multi-pair, new multi-pair, and new Cat 6. So.
When you were wiring the place with the IP audio, what was your biggest fear, concern, or learning curve? What surprised you?
It's typical to standard LAN cabling installations, so we were really cognizant of 90-degree bends. We were really cognizant of cable in connections. We also bought a bandwidth tester that will actually show you throughput, not just connectivity. So, you know, there's testers that will show you if you've got the thing wired right, but they will also, the one that I've got, will also tell you what speed the cable is actually operating at. And if you have issues with that Cat 6, you could usually go in there and twist it a little bit better and get your speeds up.
Did you find any surprises like, oh, I thought that was a perfectly good connection, and no, it's not going to qualify?
Oh, all the time. I mean, 20% of the cables were connected correctly. We run 568B in here. So it was all done to spec. And if you were to put Studio Hub on it, analog Studio Hub, it'd work fine. AES might give you some problems, but when you start actually testing it for bandwidth and getting printouts of actual data throughput, 75 megabit. These were gigabit cables, or Cat 6. Should be nowhere near that. So we would take them down, and usually it was a twist. The person that would put them in would untwist them all the way, and there'd be this much straight cable between the end of the foil jacket and the punch down. But yeah, a lot of it was twist.
Any RF issues on the IP cables?
You know, on IP cables, on the audio side, no, but I've run IP-based Geffen extenders back and forth between here and the morning show. Well, they're IP-based now. They were just analog over Cat 5 video extenders, but the RF caused such an issue coming in from the AM in the backyard. When it would rain, the ground conductivity would go up to the point to where the screens would actually move. And so we went with IP-based Geffens, and it negated a lot of that. We still have some issues, but not as bad as it was. We had them change around the grounding system when we had the morning show put in, so that helps negate a lot of it, but it's never really perfect.
You mean redid the radials in the ground? Or?
No, the grounding system in terms of where it connects from the building into that studio and how we configure the star ground and all that coming out of that studio to try and negate some of the RF issues.
Did you use shielded cable? Shielded twisted pair?
We did. We used shielded twisted pair, which is actually not that hard to find online. In town, it was kind of a hassle. Especially, well, Cat 6 was the issue. We wanted shielded Cat 6. But we did. We got shielded Cat 6 with a drain wire, and it helped.
So I heard you're going to build another studio in here.
We are. This used to be KDF. That's slated for construction later in the summer. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. Details are spotty, but I'm sure we will find out the Friday before building begins on Monday.
We had a couple of production rooms in the back here.
They're still there. One of them slated to be a control room for this, but there's still production right now. Kicking It with Kicks comes out of a back production studio. I've got another Sadie back there, and I've got a guy that sits and edits the show every day and gets it out. Thanks for joining us. Much appreciated.
What a great tour. And I included the part at the end there about the RF challenges because I want folks to know that here is a national level studio producing both audio and video It's got transmitters right there on site. That's got to be a little extra challenging too. Zach, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Good. So Zach, that tour occurred just this past Tuesday. And after watching yourself on video, and I know that's always uncomfortable. I never watch my own shows back.
That's rough. It's rough.
I know. Oh God, do I look like that? Or do I sound like that? What do you have to add now that we've watched that together? What would you add now that you didn't say then?
That every time I see that Kicks facility, it looks better and better. And the amount of time and effort that Cumulus has put into the building to build out the platforms for these shows has been amazing. So it's nice to work at a place where, the company's behind what you're doing, and we've got a really good product on the air right now. And technically, the entire plant is wired top notch. So I'm just really proud of the facility, and it's one of those places where you go into work and you can't believe you actually worked there. It's a very cool place.
Well, your other facility in Nashville, the one that I think you call it at what, 10 Music Circle? Is that the address?
That's a 10 Music Circle.
Yeah, that one. Now, that's been in place for what, about 12, 13 years now? 10 years?
Yeah, about that. That's what we call our radio property. So I've got radio entities and some syndication that operates out of that facility, things like Titans Radio and Phil Valentine, things like that.
Oh, yeah, Phil Valentine's there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and we never have gotten to take a tour of that facility. Hopefully, we could sometime, or I don't know if any plans to refurbish it. It doesn't really need it yet. But okay, so let's sidebar for a second and talk about a 10-year-old facility as the headaches you have there, engineering wise, as opposed to the headaches you have in a brand new facility where you have infant mortality and you're trying new things and this didn't work and that didn't work, but finally that did. So in a 10-year-old facility, you've got I believe a Wheatstone TDM system there, and that's been very reliable for you, as I understand. But you've also got some automation there that 10-year-old computers start to cause headaches.
Yeah, and it's a different way of thinking. Well, globally, the thinking doesn't change, but your approach to how you think about handling the facility changes. So I've got Scott Automation Systems in my radio property at 10 Music Circle. And when you have a 10-year-old facility, you need to start lifecycle planning, planning for OS upgrades, planning for software upgrades, and planning for hardware as well. Because just because the hardware ran great under one OS, you can't just go and upgrade to another OS and expect the same hardware to operate as well as it did before, just because many things aren't compatible with Windows 7. So you have to plan for things, and you can't think what's going to fix this for the rest of the week. You have to think, I try and think a year out. So any changes that I make, I want to make sure that I don't have the same issue a year from now. Now, you can never perfectly plan for that, but you can negate a lot of things if you change your mindset and start adjusting your budgets and plan for failures. If you have free time, plan for a disaster, get your backups set. Buy things on eBay when they're cheap. I've got servers running that I get on eBay. I can refurbish them, put an OS on them, and turn those into a NAS relatively cheaply. And I can do it a lot cheaper than I can by buying a NAS off the shelf. Now, I can increase storage on that, to the limits of the hardware, and start backing up a lot of the data, the audio data in the facility. So it's all about how you think and your approach to it, and plan on a machine upgrade, hardware, software, everything, every 3 years. That's a good rule of thumb. If you do that, 90% of your problems just won't bother you, because what you don't want to have happen, and with both of these facilities and having to take care of both facilities, the last thing I want to have happen is have an automation system go down in 10 at the same time my morning show goes off the air. Then I'm in trouble, big trouble. So I can't be at two places at once. We don't have the the manpower to handle large scale disasters like that. I don't think anybody would if two entire plants were to go down. There's not enough manpower to do it. It's impossible. But by life cycle planning and software planning, you can negate a lot of that.
that life cycle planning, that's actually kind of I guess a new concept, especially when it comes to me, when it comes to like 3 years for a computer. And I got to ask you a question about that in a minute, but I just realized I dealt with a couple of computer issues. I've dealt with them over the last 3 or 4 months. I mean, computers just all out failing, and I got to rebuild them at my own stations in Mississippi. And I just realized those computers were 8 years old. Of course they're going to fail. So you may plan for a 3-year life cycle. You by the time the budgetary process happens, it may end up being 4.5 years before you do something. Mm-hmm. Now, tell me how you jibe that with buying a server on eBay. How do you freshen that up so it may last you 3 years?
So server hardware is pretty robust, and if you buy something recent, I mean, I'm only buying 2 or 3 year old servers at most, and as soon as I get them in, all the hard drives are ripped out. I've got new hardware. In terms of hard drives, the thing about server level machines for building backup purposes is that they don't have software RAIDs. They'll have hardware RAIDs in them, which are infinitely more robust. They were designed that way. They were designed for a data center, a call center, where they're serving and retaining massive amounts of data. So Dell's, for instance, have the PERC 5Is and PERC 6 controllers, incredibly robust, incredibly reliable, and very easy to rebuild. And also with server class architecture, you also get RAIDs built in. So I can have my OS on a RAID. I can have my data on another RAID in the same chassis spanning over 6 drives. I built a NAS for the Nash facility last year that booked out at 7 terabytes, a little over 7 terabytes. Mm-hmm. The drives were, $70 a piece. The hardware was $250, and then you have to pay for the OS. Yeah. But you get redundant power supplies, you get RAIDs, and you get a hardware RAID on top of everything else. So the other thing is, as soon as you get a new piece of equipment in the facility, that doesn't stop and take care of your problem. Okay, I've got new equipment. I can stop dealing with this station now. No, you immediately need to start planning for the failure of that device. So this quarter, maybe next quarter, buy a motherboard, buy a processor, buy a chassis, or to start out, buy something that typically won't become useless in a couple of years, like redundant power supplies. We're pretty stable in terms of connectors now. It's not like it used to be with an ATX power supply, and then you move to serial ATA drives, and now you have to update your power supply. You can get a redundant power supply now. So start building these things into your budget. Start thinking a year from now. And if you do it in small chunks and pieces, it'll pay off in spades, because not only will you have the original machine you just installed backed up, but when the next station down the hall starts failing, you've got parts on hand, and you can go from a completely, you can go out of crisis mode and start planning for these things. When the little blips happen, weird things start happening with your automation system. You can plan your downtime, and it becomes controlled by you. You are not at the mercy of a weekend 3 a.m. automation failure, because you've planned for it, and you can take a lot of the instability away from all these systems through life cycle planning.
Good advice. Good advice. We've got more good advice coming up in a minute. We're going to finish wrapping up talking with Zach Harper, who's IT director and an engineer at Cumulus here in Nashville. I want to talk about one of our sponsors, though, and that's Lavo, and this really cool console that Lavo has. We talked last week with Mike Dosh, who's he's in charge of virtual radio projects. This is the Crystal Clear virtual radio mixing system. It's the entire control surface is software. It's driven by a multi-touch interface on a high-resolution computer display. Without the limitations of physical knobs, buttons, and faders, Crystal Clear presents the user with only the relevant controls and information, hiding anything not needed for that task at hand. Here are a few of the interesting specs there. It does have a multi-touch enabled mixing control, intuitive GUI, optimized for fast-paced radio workflows. We all got that going on. 3 stereo mixing groups, program 1, program 2, and a record bus. Integrated Q or pre-fader level with metering. There are 5 programmable scene presets that recall every detail. Precision stereo PPM meters, both Euro and US operating modes for fader start or button start, large time of day clock, and that's synchronizable to NTP. An event timer can count down or count up, be automatically selected by selected channels or started by selected channels. Talk buttons automatically appear on mix minus channels. If it's not a mix minus channel, you don't need a talk button. You don't get a talk button. That's one of the cool things about a software defined mixing surface, a virtual mixing surface. It can be set up for just the things that you need at the time that you need them. Support for guests with TalkBack, 24 sources available, 8 can be simultaneously active and online and on the air. There's advanced DSP for microphones and external sources. Now, it doesn't just consist of the virtual surface, that is the touchscreen display. It's got a core, a DSP core, and that's where all your audio I/O goes. Broadcast grade rack mount engine. All the audio stays in the engine. PC is for control only. It has low noise mic preamps, 2 separate amplified headphone outputs, balanced analog inputs and outputs, and of course AES EBU digital inputs and outputs. Integrated Ravenna AOIP interface, and it's AES 67 compliant. That means it'll talk to other consoles and other peripherals that are also either Ravenna or AES 67 compliant, and an option for a redundant power supply. Plus, there's GPIO, of course, to run your on-air and tally lamps. Check it out on the web at Lawo, that's LAWO.com, and look for the crystal clear virtual radio console. Glad to have Lawo as a sponsor on This Week in Radio Tech. Lots of high-tech stuff here. And so, hey, we were talking for a few minutes about, life cycle planning at an older facility, a 10-year-old facility. Man, Zach, a lot of folks wish they had a 10-year-old radio facility.
Yeah.
Let's move back to the new facility where you just built the America's Morning Show studio about less than a year ago. Nash Nights has come online. Of course, Kick Brooks has been in there for about a year, I suppose. So talk about, we've got just 5 minutes left. Let's hit on when you're building a new facility, what kind of disasters or infant mortality or just finding stuff out should you plan for when you're doing something brand new?
So with these new facilities, you are usually buying, we're outfitting them with brand new technology. And in some cases, we're trying things that haven't been tried in any market yet. So not only do you have to figure out how it works, get it installed in a timely fashion, but the learning curve for a lot of these things is immense. So it was the Nash facility, for one thing. We had certain products that we installed that no one in the company had ever used before, or if somebody in the company did use it, it was 1 or 2 folks. So, you're relying on manufacturer for support, and maybe a couple of your radio brethren, somewhere in the U.S. So the learning curve on a lot of this stuff is pretty substantial. I will say with Axia, once you get the theory behind it and how it works, it becomes incredibly easy to navigate and to add and take things off of the network. So the difference with the new facility for me was definitely just the learning curve in general. It's like I already have knowledge from this other facility, and now I have to find space in my brain for all this new stuff and be ready for the 3 a.m. phone call, which is coming, and be able to walk somebody through how to repair it if I can't get in remotely and can't get on the site quick enough.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I know that you and all the other engineers from Cumulus who were in building that facility, we found out some things together. Oh, well, guess that doesn't work that way.
Right.
Well, this is supposed to work that way. Let's call the manufacturer and find out what we're doing wrong here. And that happened a few times.
It did, and that's all part of it. And you just kind of have to expect stuff like that, and you can't approach it. And everybody's got deadlines, and I get it. but you have to approach it as just a learning process. That's it, and that's all. So while you might have somebody breathing down your neck to, by goodness, get this thing done, the process of learning about the new equipment, all the possibilities that become available with the new equipment, and how to integrate all that equipment into your facility and make it all work with everything else. It's really part of it I like. It just becomes one big, it's like I went to school every day. And every build has been different. So while I'm dealing with the same types of equipment, well, we might not use it the same way that we used in a previous facility. So I have to figure out a new way to connect this equipment and make and do thus and so. And hey, I just figured out I can also do this. Well, I'm going to go back to the first facility and maybe, initiate some of that over there as well.
So there's some serendipity involved when you have some new technology, especially one that's flexible. I mean, audio over IP, no matter whose, I think people end up finding out cool things that they didn't think they could do or hadn't thought to do. They couldn't do it before. And they find out cool serendipitous things to do.
It is, especially with the routing alone. I don't have to, tone it out on a punch block, punch it down, hope the punch works well, route that somewhere else and spend my time. I can get into a web interface and route my audio any manner I wish, as long as I have the ins and the outs available. It's a piece of cake.
Awesome. Cool. Hey, well, just one more question for you, and that is, those studios have a lot of what you might call flash. There's just a lot of flash going on there. Big screen. You guys have more big screen TVs there than I've ever seen in my life. It's like a sports bar in there. That's got to be fun. I mean, once you get the things hung up, and they're lighter now than they used to be, thank goodness. But once you get them hung up, you've got pretty displays going on there. That's got to add some fun to the job.
It does. And, once you get the hardware installed, then you get to add the pretty. And the pretty is very important because we want artists who come into that space to start to consume multimedia in the space before we even generate new multimedia to place on our sites. So Nash Nights Live is one example. And it could be something simple. Just an Apple interface, an Apple TV interface. Well, if I have an iPad or an iPhone or any type of Mac device, I can throw artists' pictures on that device and have it displayed on a 60-inch TV. So they open the door and they see their latest album cover. They see pictures of themselves at a concert that maybe we took from a concert in Nashville last year. So nobody else might have those photos. And it immediately sets the stage for the artist and all the artist's handlers to know we're serious. We know a lot about you. This is going to be a great interview, and we care about your product that you're bringing to us that we are re-airing. It sets the tone for the interview and lets the artist know that we care about what they're putting out. And we appreciate the time that they're giving us when they come by our studios and sit down for an interview. We want them to know that. So it helps with all that kind of stuff.
This has been fabulously interesting. If you missed part of that video tour, we'll have this show reposted or posted in a couple of days at the most, and you can go back and watch it there. Zach Harper, I want to thank you for taking the time, both with the SBE chapter, you getting prepped to show everybody through that, of course, showing off what is both your handiwork and that of plenty of other Cumulus engineers, and then taking the time today to talk to us. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Zach Harper. He is IT director and engineer at the Cumulus facilities here in Nashville, both their radio facility and their new country lifestyle Nash, nationwide network type facility where they produce several shows now, including Kix Brooks, Kicking It with Kix, and American Country Countdown, American Morning Show with Blair Garner, and Sean Parr and Elena with Nash Nights, heard nationwide on many, many affiliates. Exciting to have all that around, and glad to be part of it. Our show's been brought to you by Axia and the Livewire AOIP standard and all the cool things that plug right into it, including some Telos gear that I've got right here behind me. Also brought to you by Lavo and the Crystal Clear Virtual Audio Console, a multi-touch on a very cool screen that lets you control a mixer, 8 faders, and just have to be bothered with the things that you need right then. on the web at lavo.com and look for the Crystal Clear virtual radio console. Thanks to Andrew Zarian for being our producer in New York. And thanks a lot to Suncast for getting the show posted every week. Appreciate that very much. Hey, next week we have a very interesting guest, a fellow named Philip Molivar. Philip Molivar. He's got some interesting things to say about radio history, and that can teach us about where radio could be going. You won't want to miss it next week on This Week in Radio Tech. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.